action. That right hand bang as Roman was lunging in. He's got it. Fulton, oh, big right hand that staggered Roman momentarily. There's the right hand over the top by Fulton. As with his Roman instinct, that is taking left uppercut. Big right hand by the champion. Backing up that area. Roman isn't throwing much, and he just gets out.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So now that this fight is almost official when it comes to Stephen Fulton versus Inoue, I've already started to study both fighters. I do this whenever there's a really competitive type of fight, you know, maybe a 50-50 or even 60-40 type of fight. I'll probably watch Inoue versus Paul Butler about 10 or 20 times leading up to the fight. I'll watch other Inoue fights as well, but I'll mainly focus on the Butler fight. And when it comes to Stephen Fulton, I'll watch his fight against Roman over and over again. This is exactly what I did when Canelo Alvarez was going to fight against Bivol. I watch Canelo versus Kovalev every day, and I watch Bivol versus Joe Smith and other opponents as well, almost every day. And after I watched the fights over and over and over, I came to the conclusion that there is almost no chance of Canelo Alvarez winning that fight. And I told you guys that just by looking at the strength and the flaws of both fighters. Well, Tim Bradley, who actually called that fight, Inoue against Butler, afterwards he sat down and talked to Joe Tessitore about the potential matchup, Inoue against Fulton. And when it came to Tim Bradley, he completely praised Fulton. He didn't point out any flaws. He said he does everything really well. But when it came to Inoue, he said that he's going to have to improve. He's going to have to get better if he's going to move up and fight against Fulton. Tim Bradley, he's seen a lot of the flaws that I've seen in the Butler fight and other fights as well. And understand this, when you hear Tim Bradley say something like this, you know it's sincere, because Tim Bradley and Andre Ward, they're always trying to cater to what Joe Tessitore and the rest of the gang say on ESPN. So when they talk, they're always trying to say it in the nicest way, not to piss them off, as if they're asking for permission to even say what they're about to say when it comes to Inoue's flaws. When Tim Bradley said these things about Inoue, it almost came off like he wanted to apologize to Joe Tessitore for even saying it. Inoue was in there in his last fight with a guy that is not even half as good as Stephen Fulton is. And this guy, moving around fighting a very defensive fight, he was able to block a lot of Inoue's best punches. Butler didn't throw a lot of punches in this fight, but the crazy thing is almost every time he punched back, he landed punches on Inoue. There were times when Inoue, who clearly looks up to Roy Jones, he was trying to do little Roy Jones tricks, put his hand behind his back, but then when he would punch back, he would get hit at the same time. And these are the flaws that Tim Bradley was saying that Inoue, he has to work on. He has to get better before he gets in the ring with Fulton, and he's clearly not going to get better because this is his style. This is who he is. It's just like Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao, he did a lot of things great, but he had a lot of flaws as well that he could never change. You know, because boxing is based on race, nationality, and pride. It's only when I do a prediction on this fight that the race fans, they get upset. All the fans that are not black, they get upset if you say the black guy is going to win. But if I say Stephen Fulton is going to lose this fight, if I say, oh man, Inoue is going to wipe him out, and I don't explain why, I just say, look, man, Inoue is going to win. Even if I came off as extremely biased in favor of Inoue, and I said, look, man, I don't care what nobody says. I like Inoue, and I'm picking him to win this fight. And I just left it at that. Obviously, none of these race fans would have a problem with that. They wouldn't care if you made it very clear that you were straight being biased, as long as you're being biased for the fighter that's not black. But then when you do an analytical breakdown of why one fighter may win and the other will lose, that's when they take it personal. But understand, if I do a prediction on Spence versus Crawford, they don't care who you say is going to win that fight because they're both black. I say all that to tell you this story. So the last video I did on this fight, there was someone in my comment section, and once again, he was angry that I was saying that Fulton is going to win the fight. And I responded to him. I asked him, I said, what did I say in the video that you disagreed with, that didn't make sense? And he didn't disagree with anything. But then this was funny because while he's defending Inoue and riding for Inoue, he actually says to me, look, man, all Fulton is going to do is move around the ring, use his jab, try to control distance, fight on the inside, and then clinch when he has to. This is what this man said. And then he contradicts himself by saying that Fulton is not going to sit there and exchange with Inoue because if he does, he'll get knocked out. Even when you listen to his breakdown of how the fight will play out or how he believes Fulton will fight, it sounds like it's a serious uphill battle for Inoue to win, right? Because that's exactly the way Fulton is going to fight. The only thing he left out is I truly believe when it comes to the championship rounds, Fulton is going to start walking down Inoue. And he might even stop him or at least hurt him in the process. Just think about this for a second. If you've been watching boxing for quite some time, right? Then you would already know historically and statistically, whenever you have a fighter who can control distance, who has longer arms, who's taller, has a great jab, and as that fan put it, can fight on the inside, has great reflexes, a great defense, very athletic, and has speed. 8 times out of 10, and that's being generous, that fighter will beat an aggressive fighter or a more aggressive fighter that doesn't have the same type of defense that that fighter has. Not to mention Stephen Fulton is naturally the bigger guy. It shows you how hypocritical these race fans are because when it comes to Devin Haney versus Lomachenko, they use the size excuse for why they believe Lomachenko is going to lose that fight. And once again, they're rooting for Lomachenko. But when it comes to Inoue, they don't want to hear anyone say that Stephen Fulton is going to win this fight, even when you give them a complete, thorough analytical breakdown. When that's the whole reason we're here. We're all on boxing forums to talk boxing, break down fights, talk about upcoming fights, etc., etc., etc. With that being said, I want to play this clip of what Tim Bradley said. Understand, guys, skill recognizes skill. Tim Bradley is a former top 10 pound-for-pound fighter, right? So he knows what he's seen in the ring. And Tim Bradley, he sees Inoue as a flawed fighter. And when it comes to Stephen Fulton, he didn't really see any flaws at all. That's what Tim Bradley said. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip. Now, once again, the clip starts off with Tim Bradley talking about Stephen Fulton.
Fulton can box, he can fight from the southpaw stance, he can fight orthodox, he has good power, respectable power. You know, he's shown his ability inside the ring as a champion as well.
Okay, so right there, you heard what Tim Bradley said about Fulton's skills, right? Once again, he didn't talk about too many flaws when it comes to Fulton. Now, Joe Tessitore, he responds to what Tim Bradley just said about Fulton's skills. And his counter was, but you know, Inoue, you know, he's going to go down as one of the greatest power punchers of all time, right? And the way... Now, Tim Bradley, he responds to Joe by starting off saying, you know, I got to be honest, Joe. And once again, when someone says, you know, I got to be honest, they're about to tell you something you most likely don't want to hear. And I told you guys earlier in this video, sometimes when Tim Bradley is talking to a Joe Tessitore, it sounds like he's apologizing to him before he even says what he wants to say. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about in this exchange right here. So Joe Tessitore starts talking about how much power Inoue has and how it's going to carry over to the new weight class. And Tim Bradley's response was basically that power is not going to matter if you don't improve on these things.
I would have to think, and I have great respect for Fulton, that the power that we've seen out of Inoue is going to carry to 122 and to 126. This is
There's no doubt.
all-time generational power. I mean, the list of pure power punchers in the history of the sport, where you have guys like Joe Louis and Sam Langford, like all-time punchers, all the way through guys like Julian Jackson, and obviously so many heavyweights, but among lower weight class guys like Sandy Sadler and Jimmy Wild, this is a guy who's going to be thought of as on that list somewhere for the lower weight classes.
Yeah,
this is all-time God-given power.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it, Tess. He's 29 years old. He has still a lot more to go. I don't think this is the finished product, to be honest with you. I think as he steps up in weight, he's going to have to continue to get better. I could tell you one area where I see he's a little weak, and that's inside and maintaining himself inside the pocket. I think he would have been better suited and probably would have got the stoppage if he didn't pull out and get out of range as often as possible. If he would have stuck and cornered Butler and kept him occupied in that corner.
Not what ESPN and the rest of the racist fans wanted to hear at all. Did you guys pay attention to Tim Bradley saying, Inoue is 29 years old, but he still has a lot to go. He still needs to get better. At 29 years old, you know the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. If this man is 29 years old, this is his identity. That's who he is in the ring. He's not going to get better. He's going to always have those same flaws, just like he's going to always have those same strengths. This is the final product. You could say this is not the final product if he was 22, if he was 23, right? If he was only a pro for a year or two. That's not the case here. And once again, Tim Bradley, if you listen to how he was saying it, he felt almost uncomfortable saying it because he knew that Joe Tessitore did not want to hear this. The only time you hear Tim Bradley or Andre Ward speak to Joe Tessitore or Mark Kriegel and they say something with complete conviction is when they are talking about another black boxer. And I take that back. It's not just speaking to Joe Tessitore or someone on ESPN. It's whenever they're talking to anyone who's interviewing them. They are always far more comfortable when it comes to talking about another black boxer, like Tim Bradley just recently did when he was dissing Gervonta Tank Davis. Now, you listen to how he was talking about Gervonta, and then you listen to how he's talking, his tone, how he's talking to Joe Tessitore, when once again he's saying, look, man, I have to be honest. He's stuttering a little bit. He knows that this is not what old media wants to hear. But the good thing is, when that type of person is breaking this Inoue fight down the way he is, it's genuine. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, fever blisters, diabetic ulcers, this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Elo-Diki Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to elodiki.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram. Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues, so make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com.